Welcome back to Grizzly Games Kerbal Space Program. The year is 1955. And it was a very busy year. Actually, I had, seven missions I completed in the year. We aren't going to watch them all. This early one was actually on March 22nd. It was a 120-kilometer flight for life science with 75 pounds of payload on it. But I just want to bring in on here, there was an earlier flight on January 7th, and it was with the Stiletto. It was actually the sixth flight of the Stiletto. Hit 55 kilometers and 700 meters per second. But I had an early engine out, so I boarded, took parachutes down. Didn't record that one. But this is the interesting one. This is Skylift. It was a little project to put together. I wanted to make a plane that could conceivably carry my X-planes. You see it has two jet engines under the wings, a couple hard points which I put sensors on. I got the idea, instead of landing an aircraft to get ground readings, maybe I could just have that sensor package I could drop like a probe with parachutes from the aircraft. There's also a couple of hard points between the engine and the fuselage on both sides of the wing, and I actually measured it out. I could conceivably airdrop the Stiletto from underneath on that point, but that's counterbalance, and it's not practical to do that, at least not with what I know about Kerbal Space Program. So I'm going to take this one up for a flight and get an idea of what it's capable of. See, it takes off rather nice. It is a little wonky on the steering at low speeds, but I had to get the speed up, and then I have to watch because the engines, you see, overheat at low altitude. So as soon as I got up to speed, I cut back the engines, and it makes a nice stable flight at that point. This flight is in April 26th. Got a good view of the probe there. Shaped pretty much like a bomb or missile. See, I'm setting up all the sensor packages so I can see when we're over a point of interest, where perhaps I'll drop one off and get readings. The view from inside the cockpit in the front seat, two pilots on board, mission specialist and co-pilot, and then the aircraft pilot. I love the field of view here. I believe this is the HE-111. Now we're in the pilot seat. A little oddity going on over here, but oh well. I do have a parachute on the back end, you can see there, to assist with landing. I also put navigation lights top, left, and right, and the couple windows, and you can see that there is a observation science mission that's built into the fuselage, so we can get science from that. And the whole point of this aircraft really is to get as much science as possible. Now at this point I was setting up this first one to drop, and I quickly realized that if I'm going to use one and start the experiments, I'll have to go to the cockpit and the pressure and temperature sensors on the actual airplane and turn them off so I can turn the ones on the probe on. When we accomplish that, double check, make sure the parachute's ready to go. And the pylon didn't work quite the way I thought. It actually dropped the pylon off of the plane rather than the sensor probe off the pylon. It's one of the things I was correcting after this flight. I'm turning the sensors back on so that I can tell when I'm over a new point of interest and getting some more science from it. So we go from Boca Chica, Brownsville, Texas, and head down the coast towards Mexico. And there's a little inlet point where we can fly into Mexico and hopefully get tropical. Tropical biome gets more science from the biome. And there's that little inlet. It's my reference point. I'm flying in. I got a little bit higher and faster. At the higher altitude, I'm able to run the engines higher. I actually found my limiting factor on this plane isn't the fuel, because I got plenty of fuel to fly for a very long time. It's actually the battery power. Towards the end, I was getting a little nervous that my batteries were going to run out. And you can see I'm dropping the second probe. This probe was supposed to land in the tropics. Unfortunately, I was too high and it flew too far forward. Ended up in a biome I'd already explored, so I'll have to redo that one in a future flight. Flying back towards Brownsville. Of course, you got the long island chain here. And then coming in for a landing. I had to circle around a few times. I wish that there was some engine noise, because even when it's down low, the engine's still technically on, but doesn't make any noise at the setting, which I find peculiar. Of course, flying in anytime in the first aircraft is kind of nerve-wracking, because you're not sure what your speed, stall speed is. And actually, in this one is, because of nice big wings, is a very low stall speed. I was able to come in really slow, touchdown and steer, and didn't have any problems with it at all. So that's Skylift. I'll be flying it again, I'm sure, because it's great for getting that Earth biome science that you need. Parachute deployed for stopping. And because I still have engines running very quietly, I'm actually able to steer it around and take it right over to the hangar. Now this is going back to our flights of Stiletto. This is the Mark II version. Now Stiletto Mark II, I actually did 3 flights. This is the most interesting one though. It was to get to a certain height, and after that I just tried to get as much airspeed as possible, and I also put it down so I was flying level to the ground, rather than doing a ballistic up and down flight profile. It has 3 engines on it now, and I did move the wings just slightly back. That caused a certain amount of time to pass. I think it took like 6 months to get refigured and ready for flight again. But with this one, I was actually able to break several altitude records, going all the way up to 75,000 kilometers on one flight. And I'm working towards getting stable level flight at speed, which you need for some of the missions. And you have to hold for 3 minutes, which is tough because the engines don't stay lit that long. Again, view from the cockpit. And I have a high angle of attack, mostly to slow down. The trick on re-entry is when you get into the lower atmosphere, if you're at a certain speed, this happens. You start heating up your nose and you don't want to melt it off. So it was a bit warm in there. And the whole time we're flying along, you can see the altitude's going down, but the speed took quite a bit of time for the speed to go down. Eventually, I decided to roll it over and put the full belly against the direction of travel, make the whole aircraft a giant speed brake, and then pull through a split S. So I hold it here just for a little bit, and you can see the speed drops down quite rapidly at this point. At 23 kilometers, we're still pretty far up at that portion of the flight. Now we're coming back down towards the airfield, and I got this crazy idea. I says, I wonder if I could fly this thing down to the airfield from inside the cockpit. So here I go. And let me tell you, I was clenching hard all the way through this, using the aircraft shadow on the left as a reference to my height, as well as the instrument panels, and watching that speed. It's about 105, which is slow enough. I figured I could do it. But the hard part is figuring out just where the landing field is, making sure I was straight and level. I kept on having to dip the nose down so I could take a peek. And then finally I decided, okay, commit. A little bouncy, but made a couple quick corrections and had a chance to look around. Well, that puts a whole new level of difficulty. So here is, I believe this is the Claw 12 mission. This one was to get to 145 kilometers, no, 145 pounds of payload, or kilos of payload, to 70 kilometers. And this one was a near disaster. It was an Air Force package, and they must have been playing around, because as soon as I took off, I realized I was not going overseas as planned. I was heading down the coast of California, and alarmingly, I could see I was in a direct line for Los Angeles. Now, I did achieve the mission fairly quickly, because it's just certain payload to a certain altitude, and I definitely hit 145. I'm up at 180 at this point. But I was like, where's this thing going to land? So checking my flight profile, sure enough, I was heading directly for Los Angeles. Now, some of you may have thought, oh, that's not such a bad deal. Go ahead and nuke Los Angeles. And I'm thinking, that's what the Air Force officers were thinking. You know, could we target a city from a certain range? But of course, I had to make the decision to detonate the stage and forego collection, because there was no guarantee where this thing is going to land. And you can see the whole metropolitan area there. Bonus. This is Claw 14, which I actually took off in May 16th, a little earlier than Claw 12. This is a simple 140 kilometer. This is a cool shot. I decided last minute to put this in the video. I did cut out 2 other flights of the Stiletto and 1 other Claw flight that's just standard fare stuff you've already seen. But things are picking up. Pace of exploration is going up. Getting some more funds. I do have Wallops now online, and I'm developing a new rocket, which should be ready for probably in the next video, that will actually be a controlled first stage that will let me start doing the long range contracts. So we're just about done with all the bio. I think I got all the bio experiments done, the altitude experiments. With the new rocket, it will start going for longer distance and greater heights, and start working towards orbital insertion. And of course the Stiletto, I'll continue trying to advance that, as well as taking the Skylift on more Earth science missions. And soon we'll be shooting for orbit. For now, this is Grizzly signing off.